You know, believe it or not, everybody believes in God, at least some kind of God. You know, those who don't believe in the God of the Bible, they also have to have some kind of answer from where life came from. There's no way around it. You know, we have life, we have living beings, and we have this planet, we have the solar system, we have all this stuff, and everybody has to have some kind of explanation for this, and this is how we come up with our worldview. You know, those who deny the Bible, which is definitely the most reasonable answer of how we got here. An intelligent mind, because we have so much order, we have so much design, we have all these things that we see that always come from people. The old watchmaker argument is that if you stumble across a watch laying on the ground, you know, there's no way that you're going to rationally say that this watch just came about by some kind of natural process, or it just came from nothing. The first thing you're going to know is that it came from a mind. And then when it comes to our bodies and when it comes to the complexity of the solar system, it's blowing the complexity of the watch out the water. It's much more complex. Our bodies are full of systems that need each other to run. The world and the solar system are all irreducibly complex systems that need each other to run, just like the watch. When you take one screw out that watch, or you take one cork out that watch, it won't run. And this is the same way the cells in our body are. This is the same way our ecosystems run. Without certain animals, things won't run. Without our ozone, you know, the earth won't be protected. So there's so many things, the distance from the sun, you know, the planets that are blocking certain meteors from hitting Earth. There's so many small little details and complexity in life that you can't take one away from the other. So the most reasonable thing for us to think of is, wow, this had to be a mind. But what's the excuse for those who don't want to accept God? Which, what I've come to realize, is always for a moral reason. Because when the evidence points to one thing and it's obvious that it points to this, the only reason somebody would deny this is if they didn't want to believe it. And this is a heart issue and not intellectual issue. So when we have issues in the heart to where we want to be our own gods, or we want to only answer to ourselves, this is when we start going deep into these other theories. A lot of people believe that scientists are very unbiased and that scientists are somehow above this problem of the heart. They're somehow above trying to deceive themselves. But, you know, no matter how much book knowledge you have, that will never change the moral consequences that we have as humans and being imperfect. People believe that a lot of scientists are above this moral problem that we have, but they're not. If we don't have God, how are we going to explain where life comes from? Well, this is where you get the secular God, and their God is time. We know automatically from looking and experiencing life that life always comes from living beings. In order to have a baby, we need two parents. In order to have, you know, a baby duck, we need a mother and a father duck. You know, chicken, going all the way down the line, we know that life comes from life. With insects, even with germs. Germs come from other germs. So in order to have these things, you have to start with life. But what do the seculars claim? They claim, well, we know this is true, but give us millions of years and we'll give you life from nothing. So we believe that God made everything from nothing. They believe that nothing all on its own made everything. And this is way more irrational than a God, an actual thinking mind putting together and creating things from nothing, than nothing itself creating. Nothing itself will always be nothing. But God is something. God has a substance of being and a mind. So he can create. But when you have nothing at all trying to create, this is something that just doesn't make sense. You can't add these qualities of creating to something that's not even there. So it doesn't make sense. And this theory falls flat right at the beginning. The first law of thermodynamics is that matter cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be converted into energy or energy into matter. So right away, if anyone's claiming to do honest science, they have to understand that the Big Bang Theory is automatically breaking this law right from the beginning, when they're saying that matter created itself and energy created itself. We already know also from the second law of thermodynamics that everything is winding down, everything is being destroyed. So the universe itself is not eternal. We know it's not eternal because things are dying. The sun, anything that's hot begins getting colder. Anything that is cold begins getting warmer until it reaches a middle temperature, like a room temperature. Just like if you bring a very cold cup into a room, it will start getting warmer. And if you bring a very hot cup into a room, it will start getting cooler until it reaches this middle temperature. The same thing with the sun and all the other things in the universe. Things that are hot are still cooling down. So we know that they aren't eternal. They had to have been wound up and been at a completely high temperature or a completely low temperature, and we see that they're reaching this middle temperature. So this shows us that the universe around us is not eternal. So it had to be created. Everything that is created and has a beginning has a cause. And this is what God is. In order to have a cause for these things, we need something that is thinking. To put together the universe in this complex structure that it's in. And life itself, coming from nothing, we know is completely irrational. So the only excuse that is given to us by the opposition is that it takes millions of years. It takes a million years. Don't worry. We know we can't see it and we don't have any way to explain it, but just give it millions of years. Everybody knows that nothing makes nothing. I don't care how much time you get it. This is a lie. And this is how they deceive people, because they themselves don't want to take the moral responsibilities of believing in the Creator that was told to us by our ancestors all the way from the beginning. Right here in Jeremiah 9, verses 5 through 6. Friend deceives friend, and no one speaks the truth. They have taught their tongues to lie. They weary themselves with sinning. You live in the midst of deception. In their deceit, they refuse to acknowledge me, declares the Lord. This is what we live in. We live in an age of deceit where people are so stuck on this theory of evolution because of what it does for them. It gives them this liberation, this freedom. But this freedom that they believe they have is really just making them more a slave to sin. These people are slaves to sin, and they want you to come right along with them. They want you to believe you're just an animal and that you don't have to answer to anybody. But this isn't true. We have to be very cautious and pay attention to the things that you hear when people are claiming to speak about science. Are they speaking about things that they've observed with their eyes? Or are they speaking of theories? Are they thinking about things that they have made assumptions on, or if they have faith in? Anybody that tells you something was millions of years ago, this takes faith. When it comes to dating methods, you can't trust the dating methods because they take assumptions before you can even get a date off anything. Whenever paleontologists bring in a rock or something from the ground to get it tested, they don't just test it and get an age. They first ask what layer of rock did you get it from, or they look at what kind of fossil it is, and then they say, oh, okay, we know this comes from this time period, or we know this rock came from this layer. So then they put their assumptions on top of what they are dating through their different dating methods, whether it's carbon-14 or any other kind of dating method they use. But it has to have an assumption, because you don't just get plain numbers from dating methods. It takes these people taking their worldview of already believing that there's no God and already believing in the millions of years, and then finding out information that they've already preconceived, and then putting their information on top of what they learn. So you're not ever just finding out the age of anything because somebody tells you. You have to understand that they put their assumptions inside, and this is what gives them the dates that they have. So the Bible itself tells us that the earth is no more than maybe 6,000 to 10,000 years old. We can find this out by lining up the genealogies in the Bible all the way from Adam, looking at the ages that were given to us, and then coming to the present time. And this is how we know. And also when we look true science, true observable science, we see things like comets that are still around. We see things like the level of salt content in the ocean, and we see things like the population of humans, and these things definitely match with the younger Earth. Remember, people are deceiving you because of their own lust and their own sin. Don't be swept away on it. Use your own common sense and understand no one really knows the exact age of the Earth, and there's no way we could possibly know it was millions and billions of years old. This is something that always kind of struck me as odd, that people would know this type of thing. But now that I've learned more about how science is done and all the assumptions that are put into the work, I've become a deeper skeptic. And I also understand that morality has a big part in this. And that reading the Bible and learning more about the human heart leads me to understand deeper what the true motive is behind things like evolution. Something to think about.